July 31st, 1987, Edmonton was pushed to the limit in many ways.
It was pitch black. Street lights were on. You'd think it was nighttime. It's like a bomb exploded in there or something. It was just the whole area.
It's amazing the force that nature applied that day. Picking up rail cars, demolishing buildings. These roofs were just literally pulled right back, and whoever was in them, was coming out through the roof.
This was the call, the situation that we're all trained for, that you would never want to miss. But he said, when I got there, I didn't want to be there. Never want to do it again. In 1987, I was the operations manager for Edmonton Ambulance Authority. The general manager was away for the day, so I was kind of in charge at that point in time. It was a beautiful summer day. It started to cloud up in the afternoon, and we knew thunderstorms were coming in. At 3:37 in the afternoon, there was a loud boom. There had been a lightning strike in the lane behind our building. The dispatcher, who was on the terminal, actually got shocked and knocked right off her chair from the power surge. And then all the 911 phone lines lit up with calls. And that's when we started to find out what was happening.
We got a call from EMS saying that there was a tornado. And in all the years that I had worked there and in Edmonton, I had never heard that there was a tornado. And there was kind of this disbelief.
The request was out for all firefighters, police officers, nurses to report to their work locations. You never really think that a disaster like that can happen in your own backyard.
We had seen the tornado, literally saw it as we were coming down 50th Street, and then everything escalated exceptionally quickly after that.
And I remember some of the environment that was happening around, like thinking that we were going to get so many patients. Did we have enough equipment?
I had medical students with me, and I sent them on the wards, and I said, anybody that can go home, get them out of here, because we're going to need beds.
I was notified by managers at the division I worked at, South Division, that the disaster had happened, to grab your gear and get out and get to the scene. Everybody was being redeployed. We were assigned to Knoll Lumber. It's a lumber yard. It was an industrial area. We went to the command post, and this direction was work. They wanted us to team up with search and rescue and start looking for survivors. The area was literally a pile of rubble. It was just a disaster to the point of, where do you start? So we started moving rubble, and I looked down and saw a body laying there face down. We saw a body that clearly was deceased. In those days, sadly, there were limited portable radios. They didn't do what they do now, so you never, in those days anyway, you never took over a channel for a specific event. You had 4 channels covering the city, so we had to share it.
So it was just pandemonium. It was bedlam. You couldn't hear. You had, if you can imagine, having 4 or 5 different people leaning in, trying to listen to one of these radio channels, and then, communicate with the staff. It was extremely difficult.
We were limited by the amount of resources that we had. There were power lines down everywhere. Industrial propane tanks, 500-pound propane cylinders, strewn across open fields with gallons of propane being spewed onto the ground. There's a huge risk of explosion.
When you know you sign up for what we're all signing up for, you know you're going to experience a wide variety of events. At the end of the day, we all sign up to help, so I think we're just all in the mode of what can we do to help.
You know, if the tornado had just ended there, that would have been a big disaster in and of itself. We had no idea what was continuing to happen across the city. When it hit the Evergreen Trailer Park, it knocked out all their phone exchange. And so people couldn't phone out at all. And it wasn't until a number of victims or people had walked across a good half a mile or so to Alberta Hospital and then relayed their story, and then the phone calls started coming in about the Evergreen Trailer Park. Our medical director came back over the radio and told me that he wanted me to arrange for a temporary morgue for victims' bodies. And I asked him how you know, what would you like? How big of a facility? And he said a skating rink. There were probably somewhere between 300 and 400 patients were actually taken to hospital. EMS, we only transported 87 of them. But we didn't know that they were also dealing with all of these other hundreds of other patients just being brought in by bystanders in their cars and whatnot.
So you had to re-triage in the ambulance bay all these patients and then, you know, try and decide which ones needed to be seen right away.
I remember a patient that was actually dropped off right outside by Stars, and he had a 2x2 that was right through him. And he went directly up to the OR.
We see car crashes and stabbings and shootings, which are a certain category. We'd never seen injuries of that magnitude before.
One lady was screaming, and I went to her and I asked her, where do you live and what's the major problem? And she said she was missing her child. And then we started to search. Probably about 5 to 7 minutes into it, we heard a small little child crying, and by the time we got the child out from under the debris, it wasn't breathing. Started CPR on the baby while I started running back to a staging area. It was amazing to what you saw and finding that child, to finding out that the baby is breathing and was crying. That was amazing as well. So that made our crew and myself feel really good.
After Mother Nature dealt you, at least what I had seen as the most powerful force I've ever seen, the skies cleared and the sun started shining through the atrium. So as we're now dealing with the consequences of this, the sun is shining. And you say to yourself, like, what just happened here? You know, the sun just shined as if to say, well, I'm Mother Nature, I can do whatever I want. Now, carry on, do what you're supposed to do, and here, if you need some light, here's some light.
July 31st, 1987 was a seminal event. It changed the way Albertans received emergency information, and we are still living with that 30 years later. Out of the tornado came a realization that an informed population could be safe. That led to the creation of the Emergency Public Warning System called EPWS. The current system, Alberta Emergency Alert, is based on the principle of no one left behind. We're trying to reach people using whatever communication method they prefer and using as many multiple means as possible. So now we have about 148 radio and TV broadcasters. We have a website. We have social media. We've also been the first jurisdiction in Canada to develop our own app. We have about 148,000 users on that app. We have here the Emergency Operations Center, which is on standby 24/7, 365. If an event occurs, we have to have people in the building able to start to coordinate resources and activities immediately. Time is not your friend in an emergency event.
The Edmonton tornado was one of the most researched weather events in Canadian history. It was certainly an eye-opener to the potential for damage that a tornado can create in Alberta. And so there were a number of advances that were made with Environment Canada afterwards.
After the '87 Edmonton tornado, Doppler radar came to Edmonton in May of 1991. Doppler radar and conventional radar will show different things. As we move this animation forward in time, we will see some of these storms on the Doppler moving in, and these colors are corresponding to wind speeds approaching 50 knots, which is about 100 kilometers per hour, ready to move into the Edmonton area.
Being in a weather office in Edmonton, you feel the effect that it's had on the city. The tornado stays in Edmontonians' consciousness. The picture beside me is of the Edmonton tornado as it was at full strength. This was as it was rated an F4 tornado as it went by. So it serves us as a reminder of the possibilities and why it's so important for us to issue our watches and warnings in a timely fashion.
In total, there were 27 people killed. There were hundreds and hundreds of people injured, and there were several critical injuries. It was a very, very difficult situation for people to deal with.
The challenge for me came when it was all said and done. That's how to cope with what we had just seen. That was my challenge.
I think we all really discovered that we're, it sounds a little cliche maybe, but we all are a band of brothers and sisters, and that we really do need to rely on each other for support. Back in those days, it was, you just suck it up, and you weren't expected to show any emotion. It really wasn't even until after the tornado that we started to get some training on critical incident stress debriefing, and we knew we had to do something. We had over 110 of our staff sit through this. Some came to more than one debriefing.
These folks see all sorts of things, and most of the stuff is handled. They manage it. But occasionally something might happen that totally exceeds their ability to cope.
Talking about what they did, what they saw, and how they felt, and the emotions, and what they did afterwards, it really helped people process how they felt.
A lot of lessons were learned in 1987. I think of the resiliency of fire rescue service members, of other agencies, but the resiliency of the public. That really struck me, is actually how resilient a community is when pushed to the limit.
It's forever broadened my sense of who and what we can become as a community, and really who we are.
We've seen the worst, of what can happen, and also from some of the best things.
People came out, civilians wanting to help, police, fire, EMS, everybody was getting involved in the searching and the helping. Everybody comes together, recognizes the disaster and wants to get involved and help.
It was an isolated event that happened 30 years ago, but it certainly can happen again. We certainly will have other disasters. Mother Nature is completely unpredictable.
It was a bad day for the city of Edmonton. But we learn from it, we grow from it, and we train for the future, so if it ever happens again, we will be prepared.